My beloved brothers and sisters, when we speak about reciting this powerful remembrance, we are not just speaking about words uttered by the tongue, but about a profound spiritual connection that strengthens the soul and calms the heart. Think about the world we live in today, filled with distractions, pressures, and constant noise that drains us of our energy and focus. In the middle of all this chaos, when a believer turns to Allah through this recitation, something extraordinary happens. A sense of peace begins to descend upon the heart, a kind of peace that no wealth, status, or material possession can ever provide. This is because the words being recited are not ordinary words. They are divine, filled with light and mercy, and each repetition builds a stronger shield around the believer. The heart that remembers Allah is a heart that is alive. It becomes firm, steady, and resilient in the face of life's challenges. There are moments in life when even the strongest individuals feel like they cannot carry on, when the weight of sadness or fear becomes too heavy. Yet, those who hold on to this remembrance find that Allah Himself carries them through those storms. The recitation does not remove every problem instantly, but it fills the heart with the strength to endure, to remain patient, and to keep hope alive. That strength is not something visible to the eye, but it is deeply felt in the soul. When a person makes this remembrance part of their daily routine, they begin to notice subtle but life-changing differences. Their speech becomes kinder, their actions softer, their patience deeper. Why? Because the remembrance cleanses the heart of bitterness and replaces it with contentment. It shifts the focus away from the endless chase of worldly desires and reminds the believer of what truly matters, closeness to Allah. And when the heart is connected to Allah, it finds rest. As the Quran beautifully tells us, indeed, in the remembrance of Allah do hearts find rest. This is not just a verse to be read, but a reality to be lived. Consider also how this remembrance impacts our emotional well-being. Anxiety, fear, and loneliness are some of the heaviest burdens people carry today. Many seek relief in temporary escapes, but those escapes leave the heart emptier than before. The recitation of this powerful remembrance, however, provides lasting healing. It gives a sense of being protected, watched over, and loved by the Creator. Knowing that Allah is with you, hearing you, and guiding you, removes that inner emptiness and replaces it with serenity. Even when people around you may not understand your struggles, Allah understands. And this connection with Him becomes the believer's greatest source of courage. It is also important to realize that the consistency of recitation matters more than its quantity. A little, done sincerely and regularly, carries more weight than a lot done without focus. This remembrance is like water for the thirsty soul. Without it, the heart dries up, but with it, the heart blossoms. And just as the body weakens without food, the soul weakens without remembrance. So when we speak about the strength and peace that comes from this recitation, we are speaking about something life-changing. It is not an optional part of faith, it is a lifeline for the believer. And those who hold on to it with sincerity will never be left empty-handed, because Allah never allows His servants to remember Him without granting them peace in return. When we think about protection in this life, we often imagine walls, locks, guards, or security systems. Yet, no matter how much effort one makes to guard themselves in the physical world, there are dangers that remain unseen, forces that no human eye can fully perceive. There are whispers of negativity, envy that lingers in the hearts of others, unseen harms that creep in silently, and the constant presence of Shaitan, who never rests in his mission to mislead. It is here that the recitation of this powerful remembrance acts as a shield, wrapping the believer in a layer of divine protection that no human hand could ever provide. Every time this remembrance leaves the tongue, it is as though the believer is drawing a line that no evil can cross. It is not a shield made of steel or iron, but one crafted from the mercy and power of Allah Himself, and who could ever break the protection that Allah places upon His servant? Just as sunlight breaks through darkness, this remembrance breaks through the schemes of Shaitan, extinguishing the sparks of envy and guarding the believer from harm that is both visible and invisible. This shield is not always something you can see with your eyes, but its presence is felt. A person who makes this remembrance a habit finds that situations which could have destroyed them pass by with little effect. They begin to notice how others may fall into traps of anger, jealousy, or despair, while they remain calm, as though an unseen force has held them steady. That is the reality of Allah's protection, a protection that does not just guard the body, but also secures the heart and mind. Because sometimes the greatest attacks are not physical, but spiritual. And this remembrance shields the believer from those inner battles that can so easily overwhelm the soul. Think about how a believer walks through life. Each day they face tests from people, circumstances, and whispers within their own thoughts. Without protection, even small trials can feel crushing, but with this remembrance, it is as though Allah places an armor of light around them. People may wonder why such a person seems unshaken, why they are not broken by insults, why they are not drowned by envy, why they walk with calmness when others are restless. The secret lies in the fact that they have tied themselves to Allah's words, and in return, Allah has tied His protection around them. It is also worth noting that this shield is not only for the self, but extends to the believer's family, home, and even their livelihood. When a person remembers Allah sincerely, that light spreads to their surroundings. Their home becomes a place where Shaitan finds no comfort. Their children grow in an atmosphere of mercy, and even their sustenance feels blessed. This is how wide the reach of Allah's protection is for those who guard themselves with remembrance. So when we recite this powerful remembrance, we are not merely repeating words. We are clothing ourselves in protection designed by the Creator. And once Allah shields you, there is no force in existence that can pierce through. When a believer recites this powerful remembrance with sincerity, something remarkable begins to happen in their life. The doors of Allah's mercy open in ways they may never have imagined, and blessings begin to flow into their daily affairs. Often, we think of blessings only in terms of wealth or material gain, but the truth is that blessings come in many forms. Sometimes it is in the ease of a task that could have been difficult, or in the presence of peace within the heart during a storm, or in the way relationships are filled with love and understanding instead of tension and conflict. This remembrance draws the attention of the most merciful towards the servant, and when Allah turns His mercy towards someone, every part of their life becomes touched by it. It is important to remember that Allah's mercy is not limited. It is vast, endless, and beyond what we can ever comprehend. When we consistently remember Him, we are essentially knocking on the doors of His mercy again and again, and Allah, in His generosity, never leaves those who knock unanswered. He opens doors that were locked. He removes obstacles that seemed impossible, and He grants ease where others may find only hardship. A believer who makes this remembrance a part of their daily life begins to witness this ease, sometimes in small, subtle ways, and at other times in life, changing moments. Think of how many times people worry endlessly about their future, about sustenance, opportunities, success, and safety. Yet, when the heart is connected to Allah through remembrance, it no longer relies solely on worldly means. It relies on the one who controls every means, and that reliance itself becomes a blessing. Suddenly, what was a source of constant anxiety becomes a source of calmness because the believer knows that Allah's mercy will carry them. That inner peace is not something money can buy, nor can power or influence provide. It is a gift, a direct blessing that flows from turning to Allah with sincerity. This remembrance also has a way of unlocking blessings hidden in the smallest things. A meal becomes filling, a night's sleep becomes restful, A conversation with a loved one becomes healing. These are all signs of barakat, divine increase and goodness that Allah places in what we already have. Without remembrance, life often feels like a constant chase for more, yet nothing ever feels enough. With remembrance, even the little one is made sufficient, and often it feels abundant. That is the beauty of Allah's mercy when it enters someone's life. It transforms the ordinary into something extraordinary. So, when we say that this remembrance opens the doors of mercy and blessings, we are not speaking about distant promises. We are speaking about realities that believers experience every single day. And the one who makes this remembrance a companion in their life will find that with Allah's mercy surrounding them, they are never left empty, for the doors of blessings remain open. One of the greatest gifts that comes from reciting this powerful remembrance is the strengthening of faith and the deepening of one's bond with Allah. Faith is not something that remains constant without effort. It rises and falls depending on how much attention we give to our connection with the Creator. Just as a plant needs water to stay alive, the heart needs remembrance to stay firm. Without it, the heart begins to weaken, doubts creep in, desires take control, and life starts to feel empty. But with it, faith grows stronger, conviction becomes clearer, and the believer walks with a sense of purpose that cannot be shaken. When we recite this remembrance, it is not just a ritual, it is a conversation between us and Allah. It is a declaration that we are aware of Him, that we seek Him, and that we want to remain close to Him. Every time the tongue moves in remembrance, the heart responds, and slowly the distance between servant and Lord disappears. The believer begins to feel Allah's nearness in everything they do, whether they are praying, working, or simply going about daily tasks. This closeness gives them confidence because they know they are never alone. Faith is not only about believing in Allah's existence. It is about trusting Him fully, submitting to His will, and loving Him above all else. That trust and love are nurtured when the believer keeps Allah's name alive on their lips. The more they remember Him, the less they depend on the world for validation, and the more they depend on Him for guidance. This shift is powerful because it prevents the heart from becoming enslaved to people's opinions, worldly temptations, or fleeting pleasures. Instead, the believer's faith becomes rooted in something unshakable, Allah's presence. Life will always bring challenges, and sometimes those challenges shake us to our core. But when a person has built their bond with Allah through remembrance, they find a strength that others cannot explain. They can face losses, disappointments, or difficulties without losing hope because their faith is anchored. They may feel pain, but they never feel abandoned. This is the kind of faith that carries a believer through life with dignity and patience, and it all begins with simple, consistent remembrance of Allah. Even in moments of joy, remembrance strengthens the bond with Allah. Instead of being distracted by blessings, the believer remains humble, grateful, and connected to the one who gave those blessings. They see everything as a sign of Allah's mercy, and that vision strengthens their love for Him even more. Their faith is not seasonal or conditional. It becomes constant because it is nurtured daily. So when we say that reciting this remembrance strengthens faith and builds a closer bond with Allah, we are speaking about something that transforms the entire life of a believer. And when that bond is strong, there is nothing in this world or the next that can break the connection between the servant and their Lord. One of the most beautiful effects of reciting this powerful remembrance is the way it transforms the heart from within. Every human being carries emotions, some uplifting like hope and love, and others heavy like fear, envy, and sorrow. Often people struggle silently with feelings they cannot control, thoughts that disturb their peace, and emotions that weigh them down. This remembrance works like a purifier. It removes the layers of darkness that gather on the heart and replaces them with light. A heart engaged in remembrance of Allah becomes softer, more compassionate, and more content. It begins to beat with tranquility instead of restlessness, with gratitude instead of complaint, with love instead of hatred. When the tongue remembers Allah sincerely, the heart follows.